Hello, John Feldt here. Welcome to the Weekly Water Outlook, Southeast Edition, February 2nd, 2014. Well, here's the observed precipitation over the last 7 days. Areas in blue are just light amounts of liquid precipitation at just a tenth or two, but boy, did that light amount of precipitation cause a lot of problems over the last week. Percent of normal precipitation, you can see red, well below normal, but again, you really couldn't look at this and observe and forecast the amount of disruptions due to the snow and ice over parts of the southeast U.S. Now, I have a pretty complex briefing coming up here. I wanted to start out by looking at the past 30 days percent of normal. You can see yellows and medium shades of orange, and that's saying it's been somewhat dry over the last 30 days. Matter of fact, that's anywhere from 25 to 75% of normal over most of Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia. So we can handle a bit of precipitation, but I'm going to be talking about a lot of precipitation coming our way. Before I get to that, let's look at temperatures. This is January, and I wanted to point out you can sort of see how far the really the extent of the more significant cold air, and that's the area in blue. And look at that, it really dropped. The unusually cold weather, the areas in blue, dropped very far south. You can see that that's indicating at 10 to 20 degrees below normal in that region. And not only did it affect the upper Midwest, it affected the southeast as well. Last week was no exception. It was actually averaged quite a bit colder, anywhere from 15 to 20 or 30 degrees below normal. That's that area in purple. So a very cold week across the southeast U.S. Now, I don't have to tell you about the snowfall. Look at the areas of snow. The maroon are anywhere up to 4 inches of snow. It's generally around 2 inches, maybe 3 inches, all the way from parts of South Mississippi all the way up into the Carolinas. Heaviest band of precipitation, as you would expect, I believe, it was right here over the higher elevations of the Appalachians, right in here, and up in parts of Virginia. And then look at this band. I mentioned this last week, right along the coast. Unusually heavy snow, 4 to 8 inches in that region as well. So definitely a very unusual week as far as snowfall goes. If you want to see what's left in the ground, we still have some snow left in the ground right here. Even some heavier snow right in the far northeast part of North Carolina. A little bit up in the higher elevations as well, but pretty much everything else is now melted. As far as soil moisture goes, these are the percentages. Fairly dry over Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, parts of Alabama, near normal elsewhere, maybe even trending wet in a few spots. Okay, now here's the setup. The current steering wind pattern here is quite interesting. I'm going to try to explain this, and it's going to be sort of a difficult briefing to sort of go over these different type of patterns. But what I've seen changing here is now the jet stream is coming off the southwest U.S. and it's dipping a bit further south before ejecting out. Each one of these little areas here are an area of upper atmospheric energy, and they'll be bringing some precipitation to the southeast U.S. So we have this train of systems. There's one here, there's one here, and there's even another one coming around that's going to be bringing us an active pattern. It's also coming in unusually far south, and when we see that, sometimes it picks up the specific moisture at mid and upper levels, and I can see some sign of that with the first system. And with the second system right here coming down in the same path, I do think it'll be picking up that as well. And when it does that, we have the potential for heavier precipitation. Now I'm going to go over two teleconnections or anomalies in atmospheric pressure, and I'm not going to be able to cover this all that extensively in today's briefing. But the first one's a North Atlantic oscillation, very similar to the Arctic oscillation. And what I want to show you on these is that we're going from that negative phase to a neutral phase and maybe even to a positive phase. So we're somewhat switching the type of phase from this predominant negative phase. And generally when this happens, the warmer air tends to expand a bit over the southeast U.S. The second one is one I haven't shown a whole lot, Pacific North American oscillation. That's been positive and that's going negative. So we're having an abrupt change. And that tightens up the temperature gradient between cold air and warm air. Warm air indicated in the yellows and orange, and the cold air up to the north. The reason I show this is not to give a very specific impact, but I do think two things are going to occur as we change these phases. Number one is that the gradient in temperature between cold and warm is going to tighten up. And number two, we're going to have along that boundary of tight temperature gradient, it's going to bring storm tracks. So I think the bottom line to the southeast U.S. here is it's going to be active weather. Matter of fact, over the next 10 days, 3 storm tracks. Number 1 is in green, number 2 is in blue, number 3 is in yellow, and each one of these, especially number 2 and number 3, are fairly strong, and each one of them is going to some degree overlap, especially number 2 and number 3 there. I'll be talking about that in a minute. Now here's the precipitation forecast. Right now models are forecasting very heavy rain over a large part of the southeast U.S. I can zero in here a little bit more so you get an idea of where it's going to occur. Keep in mind this will be changing. It's not likely that this specific amount will continue into this week. This is the next 7 days, and it's really because of an overlap of these 3 systems. And I'm going to be talking about that in just a minute here. But before I get to that, let's look at snow accumulation for the next 7 days as well. And really for the southeast U.S., the only area it looks like right now where there's going to be enough cold air to produce the snow is right here in parts of the higher elevations of western North Carolina and then up into Virginia. Could be some heavy snow in there because there will be enough cold air in that region. Now let's take a look at that animation of how these 3 systems will be aligning over the next couple days. I thought it'd be interesting to show you the 3 systems as they go through. This clearly shows the overlap. Now keep in mind, green is lighter amounts of precipitation, yellow is medium amounts of precipitation, and red and pink are the heavier amounts. So let's start here and take a look at a progression over the next 3 systems. There's number 1, there's number 2, and here comes number 3. And look how widespread that red is. Number 1, number 2, and number 3. And you can see by the time this is over, which is the middle of next week, we have a widespread precipitation, heavy precipitation over a large part of the Tennessee River Valley as well as parts of the southeast U.S. Keep in mind some of this will be also in the form of snow. Okay, now due to the alignment of those 3 systems, as you would expect, soil moistures in the upper soils will be significantly increasing over the parts of the southeast U.S. as we get into the early part of February. And you can see here the darker the shade of teal, the more saturated the soil is forecast to become over that time frame. So as far as hazards go, this is the weekly hazard outlook. Area shaded here in heavy green or in green line is the possibility of heavy rain. Then we have freezing rain potential as well. And then the heavier snow in this area here. So we really do see this mixed band of precipitation. This just picks up the closer rain. Looks like that will be extending a little bit further south into north Georgia as well. So here's week 2. Let's look at week 2 and week 3. Week 2 shows that the cold air will be coming in behind these 3 weather systems. So it looks like February 9th through 15th, modestly below normal temperatures. And then as far as precipitation goes, I think this is reflecting the precipitation early in that period, system number 3. So once that pushes out, it's probably going to quiet down a bit. So week 3, starting out active and then quieting down. Then if we get into, that was week 2. Week 3, if we look here, the temperature-wise is on here on the left. This is colder, blues and green, warmer, the reds and oranges. Looks like a very tight gradient setting up again. Look at that. Look how close it goes from very cold to warmer. Hard to say right where that's going to be, but it does look like with this little area in green here that this week could be a bit more active. So this week, week 1, busy. Week 2, starting off busy, quieting down, and then week 3 could be busy again. Takeaway points, very active week. 3 systems over the next 10 days, and precipitation possibly exceeding runoff thresholds. Thanks for listening to this week's briefing. Be updating you again next weekend.